right? So people are saying, oh, he sold drugs and he did this and he did that, we should never look up to him. But the people who say that are the same people who never tell you that they're proud of you.
I'm over it, time I move fast for the closure. I'm older and I'm moving faster than ever. I'm cold with it, whether for casters or whether it's 4 lines or more. I'm the master of never impeding the...
What's up, guys? It's Jordan. I'm back with another video. I know it's been about a year. I've just been super busy with all kinds of stuff. I bought a new house. I'm getting married in like a month. So lots of stuff happening. I will make a deeper video probably discussing some of the things that I went through and some of the things that were going on with me mentally. And obviously that's super important, taking care of your mental health, those kinds of things. But I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that today. Today we're just going to pop right into a video like I never left. And so that's it. So today I'm actually going to react to Look at Me, Xxx Tentacion, the movie that just came out on Hulu. It's like a documentary. And like right away when you start it, it gives a warning advisory because they talk about like mental health and depression and drugs and all these other things. So I felt like it was kind of the perfect video to just go through and kind of react to and discuss. Obviously, I can't really show anything of the movie. Even when you try to record the movie, like it won't let you. So I'm just gonna kind of talk about it and we'll go from there. So already like in the very opening scene is just him kind of talking about how he's been going through some extreme anxiety and depression. And I don't know, I feel like people just see him as a fan. I've said this a billion times, even a year later, like I'm still saying the same stuff. But everybody sees him from the viewpoint of a fan, but you kind of forget that he's a human. And you forget that this is just a 19-year-old kid who, like, yeah, he has an amazing talent, but he's still just a 19-year-old kid, you know? It's easy to forget that, like, when you're that age, you're going through it regardless. And, you know, this is somebody who grew up, like, not in a stable environment. So obviously he's not going to be stable. Okay, so now his manager is, like, discussing just who he was as a person. That's really cool because I've kind of had to, like, try to figure it out on my own from the videos that I've seen, even the vlogs that I watched with you guys. But if more people who knew him are going to talk about him, this is going to be really interesting. So now it was his mom talking. And I don't know, maybe you guys can explain. I didn't understand what she was saying, but she basically said he's always been good at drawing attention to himself. That makes sense, right? But she said even if it was like all negative, and that confuses me because I feel like even though he wrote some crazy songs, a lot of the things he did and a lot of the, I guess, the energy and the messages he promoted were really positive. I don't know. So that doesn't make sense to me that she would say it was all negative. What's crazy now is it's cutting to like his memorials and his funeral and things like that. And it's a bunch of people saying that he meant so much to them and that he helped them and that his music saved their lives or meant so much to them or got them out of a dark place. And what I think is interesting is like a lot of people die and then people come and they start saying all those things. But with like X and Juice and certain like other people who have died, people continue to say those things like even today. Like they don't stop, they just keep saying that these people meant so much to them, and you still listen to their music every day, and you still keep them a part of your life, like everyday life, because you're listening to them every single day, all the time. It's interesting that, like, you know, you think, I don't know, sometimes people will pass away and I see people at memorials or I see these kinds of things and I kind of cringe because I'm like, okay, dude, relax. Like you're just saying that because of the emotions and everything's, you know, the emotions are high and this person just passed away. But like the legacy has kind of lived on because it's years later and people still say the same things all the time. So right now he's saying it's an unreleased interview and he's saying that they shouldn't always correlate the character he portrays to the person he is. And right before that, Hulu's intro to like the whole documentary, I guess, I don't know what to call it, but the intro was like all of these different radio shows and all these different people talking about how controversial he was as a person and saying maybe he's not an idol, maybe people shouldn't be looking up to him, and other people were saying don't disrespect him, you know, don't disrespect his life, just leave it alone. But I feel like what he's saying kind of makes sense. Is like he's portraying a certain type of character because that's how he became famous, right? is making crazy music, making deep music sometimes, making hype music sometimes, and then like, you know, you can't just make that music and then just be the same person all the time, right? Like if you have to perform for a concert, you have to perform, you have to get hype, you know, you have to kind of be crazy about it. And then at the same time, like if you're in front of a camera all the time, things are going to happen and you're going to show people things that you may not always want to show them, right? If somebody followed you around with a camera 24/7, I'm sure you wouldn't always appreciate what is being shown. You know, sometimes when we go out into public or we do things, we put on a filter to portray what we want to portray. But then we turn off that filter when we're at home, or we have, you know, our own safe places or our own things where it's not as big of a deal. It just got to the part where he's saying that his mom took care of him financially, but she wasn't really emotionally there for them. I've seen that clip before, but I wanted them to show his mom reacting to that and answering that, and they didn't. Now it's showing clips of him like getting into fights, and his mom was kind of talking about how he was always getting in trouble and stuff. And then also him saying he wanted to be a rapper. I don't know, man. Like if you have issues as a kid, you know, and if you have parents who neglect you in any way, right? Not just financially. He's saying she was there financially, but he's saying he was lacking some emotional input. Also, his dad's in jail, right? His dad's in prison, so his dad's not there. And even though he had a good relationship with his dad before that, like for your dad not to be there regardless of why, that's an issue. So I don't know. I feel like people can be so quick to say like, oh, maybe he's not a good role model because of all these things he was doing. But this was a kid, right? He's the same age as me. And I'm thinking like, man, these videos and these pictures look old. And I'm thinking I was the same age at that point. Like, it's not easy to grow up that way. And for him to like not be in a stable household and not have a stable school situation and always be acting up and always getting into trouble, like causes problems, man. It causes a lot of problems. And a lot of times people cause issues at school and other things because they want attention or because they want you know, they want their parents to input into their lives, right? Some people act up because it's the only time their parents are really going to pay attention to them. And other things, right? You just kind of, at that point you start getting raised by your peers, and that's never a good situation, especially if it's in a bad neighborhood. And like you can see at the same time, like all the videos are just his grandma and his mom like getting upset at him, which I mean at some point like you have to be able and be willing to do more than just correct. Sometimes you need to spend time with your kids. Sometimes you need to listen to them, right? Some parents think that the only input they need to give is just correction. Just don't do this, don't do that, and that's it. And that's not true. Parents have to do a lot more than that. And it's the same thing, like they're saying they took him to the studio and it's his mom and his aunt saying like they didn't expect him to sound that good, and they were like, wow, that sounds pretty good. And it's like, dude, did you listen to the words? Did you listen to like how emotionally unstable it is? How like it comes from such a dark place emotionally, right? They're saying, oh, he was only 13, 14 and it sounded that good. Like the issue should be the fact that he's rapping about these things at 13 and 14, right? 13 and 14-year-old kids should be rapping about Fortnite, should be rapping about video games and like schoolyard trash talk. It shouldn't be people dying. It shouldn't be like incestual abuse. It shouldn't be those things. But because of the neighborhood and the way that you grow up in and the way that your family can be toxic at times, like these 13, 12, 10 to 15-year-old kids are going through so much more. And there's no tools to cope at that age, right? Because you're told to go to school, get your education, behave, sit down, shut up. And there's never enough counselors. There's never enough attention at home. There's never enough input from adults that's constructive and that really like touches on the topics that are in their brain, right? The stuff that I was dealing with at 14 and 15 was drug abuse, was addiction to pornography, was like extreme bullying at you know, my first 2 years of middle school, like extreme. Like there were so many things that were going on that adults were completely unaware of, and nobody did anything because nobody knew. And then so you have your mom and your aunt listening to your rap song and you hear how dark it is, and they're like, wow, yeah, he must have really had something. I don't know, man. I don't want to be rude, but I'm already kind of getting annoyed at his mom, because like should be deeper things to say than that, but I'm just barely starting in the video, so we'll see. And it was the same thing. She was saying that she would take him to the studio to keep him out of trouble, and then she just said, I kept up my end of the bargain until it didn't work anymore. Like, she thinks that if she gives him things, it's going to create a good behavior, right? Like, oh, if you behave well, I'll give you those things that you want, but don't expect me to, you know, to really input into your life. And she said, we went to counseling and it worked. Obviously it didn't work if all you got from that was, okay, I'll give him something that he wants so that I can tell him behave. But obviously it didn't work. Like, he was getting into serious trouble now, right? Like home invasions and like different kinds of charges and like big deal stuff. Maybe you should look at the situation and say, hey, this isn't working. Maybe I should really kind of see what's going on. But no, just get him his studio time and that's it, right? Just expect that to work. Now it's showing Ski Mask, and that video with him and X, he looks so young. Ski Mask is wearing this huge like Millennium puzzle from Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's really... This is the kind of I kind of watch him and Juice and X like these videos, and I see them wearing things or doing things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that. And I'm like, oh yeah, they're exactly the same age as me. Like, we all grew up watching the same things and like, I don't know, consuming the same media. But now it's kind of just talking about how they became friends and became really close to each other and had this like, you know, brother kind of bond. I'm trying to see where that's gonna go. I love that Ski Mask is talking about the bad relationships that XXX had within his family, and he kind of just says, I felt like his family just didn't like him. And I think that's completely fair. Even just from what I've seen now, like, all they wanted was for him to just fit into their mold and just behave, and that's it. And when he didn't, it was kind of like, okay, you're gonna be kind of like the black sheep of the family because you're not doing what we want you to do. And at the same time, like, that doesn't mean you can get in trouble all the time. But they didn't input into his life. I feel that just from watching the little bit that I've seen so far, I feel like his family was not supporting him the way that they should have. Just give him what he wants to shut him up. That's what I felt like happened to this kid. And it's not fair, right? That's not parenting. That's just you doing what's easiest so that your life is easier, right? If your kid is misbehaving and instead of dealing with that, you just give them what they want to shut them up and get them to sit down, that's you being easy on yourself. That's not you putting in the hard work to raise a child to be a healthy adult with a healthy mental state and a healthy emotional capabilities to like be socially active and socially aware of what's going on and make friends and like live a good life. So I really appreciate that he's like Ski Mask is like talking about that and saying that they just looked at him as like a bad kid, or that he felt like he was just some bad kid, right? The family maybe wanted to help and maybe didn't know how. That also happens a lot. But at the same time, like, if you really, really want to help somebody, you're going to learn how. You're going to figure it out. That's like extreme anxiety and extreme social anxiety for him to want to sleep in a car or sleep in the street rather than go home to a home that he can sleep in, to a bed that he can sleep in. There's this verse in the Bible that says to eat crumbs in peace is better than to eat like a huge, beautiful meal in a household with strife, right? If he feels that he's unwelcome and he feels that he's not loved or supported, it's pretty easy to understand why he's gonna rather sleep in a car. And I just, at this point, if this documentary doesn't make his mom like answer for those things, or at least make her speak on those things, I'm gonna be really upset, because I don't think it's fair that you get to say all these things about your kid and you not have to answer to what your kid was saying about you when he was alive. He said you were not emotionally supporting him. He's dead. What do you have to say for yourself? What do you have to say for yourself for allowing him to sleep in the street and allowing him to get into all this trouble because you just wanted to give him studio time to shut him up? No, she's already saying, oh, you left home. You left the house. Nobody kicked you out. You just didn't want to follow the rules. Obviously, what else is he going to do? He doesn't understand that you're rejecting a behavior and not him because you don't ever sit down with him and talk to him. He doesn't understand that you're just rejecting a certain type of bad or malicious behavior. He just feels like he's being rejected because you have no parenting skills and It's frustrating. It frustrates me when parents say that too. Like, nobody kicked you out, you just left. No, you made it so unbearably uncomfortable that it was the only option, right? And understand this, because a lot of you guys who watch me are a lot younger. A lot of you are a few years younger than he was, and you look up to him a lot. Understand that for you to completely be off the walls, crazy, misbehaving, and then expect your parents to just deal with that is not okay, right? If you live under their roof, you should be following their rules. That's really important, right? You should respect your mom. You should respect whoever you live with, whether it's grandma, grandpa, dad, whoever, right? Auntie, uncle, whoever you live with, you're living in their house, they're paying the bills, you should respect them. But there a lot of times what happens is parents and guardians don't emotionally support children. So children don't know how to cope, and they don't know how to express emotions. So then they get into fights, then they get into trouble, then they run into all these issues. The problem with that is that if the parent doesn't know how to cope and they don't know how to express emotions, right? If mom doesn't know how to express that she wants her child to behave and she wants to know what's wrong, then she starts screaming at her kid. Then it's just a screaming match. It comes into all these issues, but parents can make it just as difficult because parents are not emotionally developed either. Because guess what happens to us, right? Guess what happens to people my age and X age and Ski Mask's age and Juice's age when we grow up? If we never have an opportunity to heal and to grow and to learn, we become just like our parents and we become emotionally unstable. And when our kids get into trouble, we don't know how to deal with it. So we just scream at them and give them things to shut them up, to make them behave, and they grow up to be just as bad. So there has to be some point where the cycle ends. And if you want it to end, you need to start that cycle, right? You need to be the one that says, I'm going to put an end to this and I'm going to change the way that things happen. But for her to just say, like, completely pass the blame onto him, like she didn't raise him, like she didn't teach him how to cope with emotions, like she didn't teach him how to cope with situations, is completely wrong. Because even he said, she gave me money, she gave me a place to eat and a place to live and a place to sleep, but she was emotionally unavailable to me. It makes sense that he would leave because that's what she did his whole life. She may have paid the bills and she may have put him into bed, but that doesn't mean that she was there for him. She was emotionally unavailable. That's the same as leaving. So if she was doing those things, she's teaching him to do the same things, and he's just going to leave physically. But I don't feel that it's fair to say that, you know, he just left on his own. He's your kid. He's underage. Like, you had plenty of opportunities to teach him, to raise him, to show him, right? You don't just yell at your kid, do what you're told, sit down, shut up, follow the rules, and that's it. They're not acting out because they don't care about the rules. They know the rules. They know what's right and wrong. He knew what was right and wrong. Kids always know what's right and wrong. The problem is that people act out for other issues, for other reasons. And if you don't figure those out or you don't talk about them or deal with them, it's going to keep happening. This is what really is starting to piss me off about his mom and his aunt, is his friends are talking about how much he poured into other people, right? They're not like, I don't know. Hulu played all these videos of him like fighting and stuff, but it's really just him and his friends screwing around. Some of them I'm sure were just fights. But like, this is just a kid. This is a kid with a bad home life and a bad background. But it's showing him at concerts, like accepting other people and being kind to other people, and his friends are kind of building up this idea that he was really positive towards others. And I don't think people just say those things. I think his mom and his aunt right now are just kind of trying to protect themselves and like trying to make sure that people aren't passing judgment on them, which really is just irritating me more. But it proves the point that, you know, he decided to say, hey, you know what, this is how I was treated. I'm not going to allow myself to treat others this way. So when he's out on his own, he's choosing to build others up. He's choosing to see people in the situations that he was in, and relate to them and be empathetic towards them and to thank them and encourage them, and that's what it takes to put that cycle to an end. And I think that it's really awesome that they're showing that side of the story too, because it's really frustrating me to like look at him as if he's a bad role model because he made mistakes. Like, he's 18, 19 years old. He's gonna make mistakes. He's a kid. But he's also choosing to take his own situations and his own way that he was treated and choose to flip it and to treat others in light of that the opposite, right? He's saying, you know, I was rejected, so I'm going to be completely accepting of everybody. You know, I was not paid attention to, so I'm going to see the pain in everybody around me and encourage them to keep going and not give up. And that's kind of why I think he's so popular with people our age, is because, you know, you may not be in a situation bad enough to where you're running away or sleeping in a car, or you might be in a terrible situation and you're not choosing not to do that. But you appreciate his outlook on life, taking the negative things that happen to you and choosing to pour into others the opposite of what happened. So if you're rejected, you're accepting. If you were abused, you know, you're lifting people up and you're encouraging them and you're taking care of them. And so I feel like people relate to him for that reason. And so I feel like adults kind of look at him and see a troublemaker, but people who are younger or people who just choose to understand him choose to see that because of his issues and because of his, you know, trauma, he took those negatives and turned them into the way that he chooses to view the world, right? That affected his worldview. That's what it's called. And so now everywhere he looks, he sees opportunities to be the person that he wishes he had in his life. It's kind of talking about how he just started to use the music as a kind of his own coping mechanism, and how he started to really kind of dive into making music in a like, it wasn't just messing around anymore. Now it was like a thing he really wanted to do. But what I appreciated from his rap group is that they were saying he was really vulnerable, and that's exactly what he was missing, right? His dad was kind of there for him but was gone. His mom gave him, you know, all the monetary and all the physical necessities, but wasn't emotionally invested, or so he says, and so I'm seeing from her. But that would create somebody who either also chooses to be emotionally unavailable when they are uncomfortable, or would, you know, create somebody who chooses to be the opposite of that and be vulnerable and share his life and share his heart to people who he thinks really need that. And so again, like I'm saying, he chose to be what he needed. You know, he looked at his life and said, all these things, if I had just had somebody who was emotionally vulnerable with me, who was able to pick me up, who was able to encourage me and say, you know, words of affirmation into my life, it would have been completely different. And so now he's doing that, and it's causing this kind of like butterfly effect of all these people coming to him and saying, you saved my life, you encouraged me, you did all these things, because that's what people need to hear. I don't know if it's some kind of generational thing. I don't know if it's the way all of our parents were raised or what, but a lot of times people our age just need to be encouraged and lifted up, and it means more than anything in the world because it doesn't happen often. And it's kind of hard because you can grow up with all the things you need, but it doesn't actually mean that you're going to be a healthy individual. And, you know, there's a lot of emotional input that somebody needs in their life to be a healthy individual. And when that's not happening, you have hundreds and hundreds and thousands of hundreds of thousands, and then ultimately millions of people who look to this one person as a great role model, regardless of what they did, because of the things that they say, right? So people are saying, oh, he sold drugs and he did this and he did that, we should never look up to him. But the people who say that are the same people who never tell you that they're proud of you, who never tell you good job. So then, like, obviously there's kind of a conflict there. I already see these videos becoming super long, so I think I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to do multiple parts on this video. I'm barely 20 minutes in and I've already had so much to say. So that's going to be it for this video. If you want to see more, make sure that you like and subscribe and you comment so that we can kind of up this channel in the algorithm again. But other than that, you know, I have some ideas for some more videos, but you guys let me know too if you have any ideas for what I should do and what I should make. But I mean, my initial reaction is that Hulu's trying to like create a controversy where there really shouldn't be one, and the discussion needs to be had on mental health, but I think also ultimately it needs to be had on the way that, you know, children are parented and children are kind of raised into this world. And if you're not raised by your parents, you're going to be raised by your peers and by the media that you consume, and that's really not a good thing in today's, you know, in today's world. But for him, like, personally, I'm just really irritated with his mom and his aunt at this point. It's kind of just rubbing me the wrong way. And you guys can let me know if you have the same vibe, or if, you know, it's something else. Maybe I'm not seeing it correctly, but I'm sure you guys will let me know. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video.
Over and over it goes, closer to sobering lows. Time passes by my window, pain dances on my pillow. Over and over it goes, closer to sobering lows. Time passes by my window, pain dances on my pillow. You cannot be my hero, I am the classroom widow. Sits in the back of the room, wallflower never in bloom. Hiding in my bedroom, writing out the red room. Living in a head tomb, missing that perfume. Discounting sounds my mind can't recount. I can't take it, I can't make it. I don't really want to live like I'm beyond you. I don't really have a choice in who you're fond to. I know that you love when I'm filled with resentment. I crave your acceptance, you see the resemblance. You knew my intentions, I knew your deception.